Hey, what's going on everybody? My name is Monatui, coach of the Tampa Bay Luxrays, and today I'm bringing you guys our GBA Season 7 Week 6 Team Builder versus Chimpact, coach of the Philadelphia Scizors. If you have not done so already, please check out his YouTube link in the description below. He is a fantastic battler and definitely one of the biggest threats in the GBA this season, and possibly the biggest threat that we have to face for the rest of the season. It's going to be very difficult to overcome him because of how experienced he is, as well as how scary his team is, which we will get into in a little bit. Before we get into that though, I apologize that this video is coming out a day late, and the fact that it is a lot quieter than it usually is. I was unable to record this a little bit earlier because we ended up playing this game a little bit late, and I was busy all day doing March Madness as well as a couple other things, helping out around the house, so I was unable to record this until very, very late. It's currently almost 2 in the morning, and the rest of my family's asleep, so I have to be a little bit quiet to make sure I don't wake them up. But yeah, that's okay. We'll just make it the world's quietest team builder, and there will be nothing wrong with that. Now, Chimpact has a very scary team. We're going to be getting into that now. Chimpact on his roster has Kieran Black, Thunderous Incarnate, Thundy is a Z-move user. He has Azumarill, Fortress, Volcanion, Silvally, Decidueye, Dugtrio, Gligar, Alomomola, and Cofagrigus. So, as you can see there, he's got a lot of bulky offense. He's got things like Kieran Black and Azumarill that can take hits and fire back really strong. Same thing with things like Volcanion. Even Cofagrigus can possibly hit hard if he wants to make it. Even Thunderous is not necessarily frail. He's got some fast offense. He's got things like Thunderous Incarnate and Dugtrio. Dugtrio is always very scary, especially with that plus 20 in attack they gave it this generation. Kieran Black is not something I can switch into. Pretty much the same thing with Thunderous Incarnate. Azumarill is always terrifying. Volcanion can be a giant threat. Decidueye and Gligar and Alomomola, Cofagrigus' wall core there can be really, really annoying for me to deal with. And Silvally is going to be very hard to prep for because it can be any type that it wants. But with that being said, I believe I've built a team of 6 that will be able to take on whatever team of 6 he decides to bring, and so let's just get into it. Starting off, we have our Jirachi. As you can see here, we are running a Shed Shell Jirachi, that is so that we can avoid being trapped by his Dugtrio, and then we're running Iron Head, Fire Punch, Hidden Power, Ice, and Toxic. Now, I'm running Jolly with a special attack, just because Hidden Power Ice should be able to 2-hit KO physically defensive Gligar after rocks. Without me having to be naive. I really don't want to go with a minus Spadef or minus defense nature because Jirachi could come in clutch defensively at some point. Like if I need something to take an Earth Power from Kieran Black, I will be able to rely on Jirachi for that. I can take an Earth Power from a decent amount of HP, which is very nice. I can also take any one hit from the Thunder. Same thing with the Azumarill. You know, things along those lines, so I didn't really want to be a minus defense nature, and again, we do enough damage with HP Ice in order to KO it, which is kind of nice. Iron Head, just general Steel Stab, flinch things, do damage to things like the Kieran Black and Azumarill and whatnot. Fire Punch, that is specifically there for the Fortress, which is very nice. Like I said, HP Ice for the Gligar, and then we have a Toxic for pretty much everything that I can't necessarily deal with 1v1. Like for example, I can Toxic the Alomomola as well as the Cofagrigus. That's going to be very useful. I can Toxic the Volcanion on switch in, which is going to be very nice. I can even Toxic a possible Thunderous Incarnate if it wants to switch in on a possible Iron Head, which can be very useful. So that's going to be the moveset on Jirachi. I want to say it's relatively standard. Obviously you don't see Shed Shell on it often, but again, like I said, that's just to avoid being hit with an Earthquake from Dugtrio, because that thing is a very scary Pokemon and I don't really want to lose my Jirachi to it immediately. Even if I don't necessarily think he's going to bring it, I have to prep for it, because that thing is scary if he decides to bring it. But with that being said, we're now going to move on to the next member of our team, and that is going to be our Greninja. Relatively standard set that we got going on this week. Hydro Pump, Dark Pulse, Gunk Shot as the attacking moves, and then you're going to see we actually have Spikes on there as well. Now, I wanted to have Water Shuriken on there just for the priority. It's going to be very nice, but I realized I didn't really need it. Greninja outspeeds everything on my opponent's team, and I don't need it to hit the Kyurem because of Gen 7 mechanics. He cannot Thunder Wave Dark types with Prankster, which is going to be very nice, so after Rocks I'll be able to hit him with a Hydro Pump and knock him out, which is awesome. Dark Pulse is also there for secondary stab, as well as hitting things like his Decidueye super effectively, which is nice. It's my strongest move, bar Graph, not to hit the Alomomola. It also hits things like the Cofagrigus. It's my hardest move to hit Kieran Black, unless I decided to run Low Kick, which was not as good as Dark Pulse this game. Gunk Shot is there specifically for the Azumarill. I can get a little bit of chip damage off onto that Azumarill and then easily knock it out with the Gunk Shot, which is very nice. And then, as you can see, we actually have Spikes on this, and Spikes are going to be kind of important versus this team because, as you can see, I don't have any Stealth Rockers on my team. Jirachi is the only thing that learns rocks on this team, and we're not running rocks on that. As useful as they could be, I couldn't really fit rocks on Jirachi, and I didn't want to bring Miltank or Golem this week. I don't think they're going to do too much. Like, Miltank's only purpose would be to kind of switch into the Kieran Black, but even then, if it's like Bandit or Specs, it's never switching in. I can't switch into the Azumarill, it doesn't switch into the Thundurus, it can't switch in on Volcanion, so I decided it wasn't a good bring this week. So I'm gonna bring Spikes instead, even though Rocks would be a little bit better. Again, like I said, I just couldn't really fit it on my team. But Spikes on Greninja is largely there so that whenever he decides to switch into his Alomomola, which I'm pretty sure he's going to bring, and I'm pretty sure I know the spread he's going to bring, I will be able to set up Spikes on that thing, and be able to Spike Scizors, which is going to be very, very useful. I'm pretty sure he's going to be bringing a mixed defensive Alomomola just with enough Spadef so that he's not going to be too KO'd by Grass Knot for me, which doesn't require a ton of Spadef, but I'm pretty positive he's going to run like enough Spadef on Alomomola so that after Stealth Rock, Grass Knot will not be able to knock him out. I remember a while ago when Protein Greninja was still allowed in early ORSOU, people would be running Alomomola as pretty much the dedicated Greninja switch in, and I think he's going to be doing a very similar thing with that in order to deal with me, and I would like to, at least if he's going to be able to switch in on me, I would like to be able to, assuming he's like mono-attacking Scald or something like that, I would like to be able to Spike Stack versus him and possibly punish him for switching into his counter to my Greninja. And Spikes are going to be very useful for his team. They whittle down the Kieran Black, which is a very big threat. They whittle down the Alomomola whenever it wants to come in again. If I set up 3 layers of Spikes, I think Dark Pulse has a chance to kill. It'll whittle the Kofag for some other threats to my team. Spikes are just very useful this game. Obviously, it doesn't hit the Thundurus, which is a very big threat to my team, but I will hopefully be able to deal with that thing in other ways. One of the ways I'm going to be dealing with that Thundurus is with my Roserade. We're running physically defensive Roserade, max HP, max defense, Sludge Wave, HP Fire, Toxic Spikes, and Synthesis. Toxic Spikes are very useful versus its team as well. If I can whittle down the Kieran Black, pretty much the same threats that Spikes hit. If I can whittle down the Cofagrigus, the Alomomola, the Decidueye, the Kieran Black, the Volcanion, etc., that's going to be very, very nice for me. We're also running physically defensive over specially defensive, because I can take on the Azumarill a bit better. If it's banded, I'm not too KO'd by anything other than Ice Punch or Natural Gift, which is very nice. I can take on pretty much any form of Decidueye, unless he has, like, offensive Brave Bird. I'll be able to take on Gligar's attacks and then Toxic Spike up versus that thing. I'll be able to beat the Alomomola 1v1. Even though I don't have Giga Drain, I'll be able to set up T-Spikes versus that thing and possibly Sludge Bomb it to death. And there's no way he's going to be staying in with an Alomomola on my Roserade anyway. So that's going to be kind of useful. Physically defensive also helps me out a lot versus the Dugtrio. That can be a very big annoyance to my team. And Roserade, I believe, is not too KO'd by anything other than Banded Dugtrio, which is going to be very, very useful. And the Thundurus cannot OHKO me with anything unless he's like Fly, which would be kind of weird. But yeah, like even like a Spec Psychic will not be able to knock out Roserade from full. I debated about going with specially defensive, but if he's like a physical or like a mixed variant on his Thundurus with like Life Orb knockoff, that would do a lot to a specially defensive variant. So I decided to be physically defensive instead. And hopefully that'll be beneficial for me. We also have Synthesis on there. That's mostly just so that I can heal myself up in certain situations. I want Roserade to be around. I want it to be able to switch into that Azumarill as often as it can. If his Volcanion is choice locked, I want to be able to switch this thing in on Steam Eruptions very easily. I want to be able to Synthesis up versus the Gligar so I can continuously Toxic Spike stack versus it. Yeah, I think that's pretty much going to cover it. Obviously, HP Fire once again is for that Fortress, otherwise I wouldn't have a way to touch it. And Fortress is one of his bigger hazard removers, so I want to be able to punish his hazard remover if he decides to bring it. But with that being said, we're now going to move on to our Zygarde, and this is a very, very big win condition versus this team. 1000 Arrows, Toxic, Dragon Dance, and Substitute. Some of his Wall Core, while it's very, very solid versus my team, is a little bit passive. For example, his Gligar and his Alomomola, and depending on the set, his Cofagrigus. Gligar and Alomomola, with their usual stabs, Earthquake, and Scald, should not be able to break my sub if they're uninvested, which I expect them to be. Alomomola not only cannot break my sub, but I can Toxic it, set up a sub, beat it 1v1, and Dragon Dance up on it all day. The Thunderous cannot knock me out with HP Ice unless it is Life Orb or Specs, and if it is Life Orb, it is a roll, I believe, in my favor in order to knock me out. I could be wrong on that, it might be in his favor, but regardless, it's not a guaranteed chance to knock me out from full. I can also set up all over that Fortress, which is going to be very, very useful. Gyro Ball, while I am not boosted from Dragon Dance, will not be able to break my sub. So what I can do is sub up versus that thing, spam 1,000 arrows until it's dead, and then possibly set up Dragon Dances versus other things later on. I also outspeed a good majority of this team, which is very nice. I outspeed the Volcanion, I can hit that. I outspeed the Decidueye, and I can hit that thing with a Toxic, which is very nice because that's one of his key ground resists. I take any hit from the Dugtrio, and I can Dragon Dance up versus that thing and then knock it out on the following turn. Cofagrigus, it depends. I will be able to Toxic it on switch-in, which is very important, and he could definitely be running Haze, but like I said, if I Toxic it on switch-in, that's going to be very useful for me, because once it's whittled, it doesn't have immediate recovery. All it can do is Pain Split. Once I can whittle that thing down, I will be able to sweep with the Zygarde. He has a very, very scary offensive team, but not a ton of priority on his team. He has Prankster Thunderwave on Thundurus, which won't work against Zygarde. He has Aqua Jet on Azumarill, which I take very well. And he has Sucker Punch on Dugtrio and like Sucker Punch on Decidueye. Neither of those hit very, very hard. So overall, setup Dragon Dance Zygarde should be very, very good versus his team. If I can whittle the right things and if I can set up on his wall core like I'm expecting to, this is going to put in a ton of work versus his team, and I'm really looking forward to it. But next up, we're going to bring in our Buzzwole here. And this is the set I debated on for a very long time. I wanted Roost on this thing, I wanted possible Scarf on this thing, I wanted a whole bunch of things, but this is the set that I decided to settle on. We are running Expert Belt, Jolly, very speedy, with Superpower, Poison Jab, Ice Punch, and Toxic. So Superpower, Poison Jab, Ice Punch hit pretty much his entire team. Superpower for the Kyurem, Ice Punch for the Thundy, Poison Jab for the Azu, I definitely needed. I don't have a great way to hit Fortress, but I can hit that thing relatively hard with Superpower, and he can't do too much to me other than possibly set up hazards, which can be very annoying. With the 188 speed and the Jolly nature, I will be able to outspeed and max speed Timid Volcanion, which is very nice. I don't know what his Silvally is going to be. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to hit that thing, but Ice Punch I can hit the Decidueye with. I knock out the Dugtrio always with Ice Punch or Superpower, and then I hit the Gligar for an easy 2-KO with Ice Punch, even if he is max physical defense, which is very, very nice. Alomomola is a big reason that we have Toxic there, that as well as the Cofagrigus. If either of those want to switch in, and I expect those to be his primary switch-ins, I will be able to go for a Toxic and whittle those things down, and once again make things a little bit easier for my Zygarde a little bit later on in the game, because if I'm able to preserve my Zygarde, and I'm able to force him to not be able to preserve things like his Alomomola, his Cofagrigus, his Gligar, my Zygarde is going to have a very fun time late game. So that's our Buzzwole. Not any real crazy set once again. This team, I think, is relatively standard, apart from a couple different things, but I think it's going to function very, very well versus this team. And speaking of things like that I think are going to function well, we now have our Mantine holding this should actually be Wakanberry. I made a last minute change pretty much like minutes before we decided to play. I actually decided to run Wakanberry, and this is Water Absorb, not Swift Swim. I promise. I fixed that for the game. I promise. I noticed both of these and then I changed them. But we are running Physically Defensive Wakanberry Mantine. Now, we're running Wakanberry because Thundurus is just a giant problem. If you look at my team, like Thunderbolt does a lot to this, HP Ice does a lot to this, HP Ice Psychic for this. Thunderbolt kills you even though I outspeed it and offensively check it. It could have knockoff for this, and Thunderbolt and Volt Switch still kind of hurt it. So if I can possibly at some point in the game, when he's maybe a little bit low and he's like, okay, good, I get to fire off with free Thunderbolt here, and he maybe goes for a Thunderbolt on my Mantine, I'll be able to take it with the Wakanberry and then fire back a Scald or a Hidden Power Rock, and that'll be very, very useful. Scald is just general stab, possibly burns things and whatnot. Hidden Power Rock is there to break possible Kyurem Black subs. I can also take a Fusion Bolt from Kyurem Black, which is nice. To break possible subs from Kyurem Black, assuming he's not heavily invested in Spadef, or at least he has a little bit of investment in Spadef. I don't think he needs a lot in order to not break a sub from Hidden Power Rock, but Hidden Power Rock to hit Kyurem a little bit harder, possibly break a sub if he is a sub variant. As well as to possibly break a sub on Volcanion if he is a sub-toxic Volcanion, because that set actually puts in a lot of work versus my team. If he's just Steam Eruption, Fire Move, Sub, and Toxic, that puts in a ton of work versus my entire roster, and I really don't want to switch in my Mantine thinking it's a counter, not having a thing to break a sub, and then it just being able to beat me 1v1, because that would be extremely unfortunate for me. We do have Toxic there in case he doesn't have a sub up on his Volcanion, and once again, you'll notice with this team, we have Toxic on a ton of things. We have Toxic on this, Toxic on this, Toxic on this, Toxic on this, and we have Toxic Spikes on this. That's going to be a big part of this game. I need to whittle his team down so that Zygarde can sleep, and Toxic I think is the best way to do that, because pretty much anything that would want to switch in a Buzzwole doesn't want to be Toxic. Same thing with Mantine. If he wants to hard switch in on like his Thundurus with the Mantine and I hit a Toxic on that thing, that would be really nice. That would be whittled down. If he wants to switch in his Decidueye on a Mantine and I Toxic that's great. Same thing with Alomomola, same thing with Cofagrigus, same thing with pretty much anything on his team that can be poisoned. I really want to be able to whittle his team down with that poison, and that's a big reason why we're running Toxic on this, as well as so many other things. And then we have Roost there, just for the instant recovery. I want this thing to be around a while. I want to be able to beat the Volcanion 1v1. I want to be able to scald the Fortress and deal with that thing 1v1. I can switch into the Dugtrio, assuming he's not going for Stone Edge, which is very nice. And then I can possibly beat the Gligar 1v1. Not even necessarily beat the Gligar 1v1, because Gligar's super bulky and Scald won't 2 KO it, but I can Scald it, hit it super effectively, maybe burn it, and that'll be cool. But that's that. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, check out Chimpact in the description below. I think this is definitely going to be our hardest game so far. I know I said that with George, but these games, there are a lot of good coaches in this league, and the games just keep on getting tougher and tougher, and we're going to have to push through them. But thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Check out Chimpact in the description below if you've not done so already, and I will see you in the game.